The crystalline halls of the Federation negotiation pinnacle gleamed with an otherworldly radiance, each surface polished to reflect the supposed superiority of the 500 species that comprised the Galactic Federation. Ambassador Thelgzar of the Valorian Collective adjusted his ceremonial robes, his 4 eyes scanning the assembled dignitaries with practiced precision. He had negotiated treaties that prevented wars, brokered peace between species that had been enemies for millennia, and single-handedly crafted the economic framework that governed 3 sectors. Today, he would convince the humans to abandon their mining operations on Kepler 442b, the disputed world that sat on the edge of Federation space. "They're sending someone," his aide whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. "The human delegation has arrived." Thelgzar straightened, his chest swelling with confidence. Humans were a young species, barely 2 centuries into space travel. They were emotional, impulsive, and diplomatically inexperienced. This would be, he reflected, one of the easier negotiations of his career. The doors hissed open. What walked through was not what anyone expected. Sergeant Adam Kowalski stood 6'4", with shoulders that seemed too wide for the doorframe and a face that looked like it had been used as a whetstone. His dress uniform was technically regulation, but it fit him like a straitjacket on a bear. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, and his right eye had a slight milky quality that suggested it was synthetic. He carried himself with the casual menace of a man who had seen things die and hadn't particularly cared. Behind him walked Joyce Chen, her lieutenant's insignia barely visible beneath the citations that covered her chest. She was smaller, but her eyes held the kind of cold calculation that made predators think twice. Her black hair was pulled back in a regulation bun so tight it could have been used as a weapon. Thelgzar's confidence wavered. I was expecting Ambassador Williams." "Ambassador Williams got food poisoning," Adam said, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "Bad oysters. We're the replacement delegation." "But you're military?" "Yeah," Joyce confirmed, pulling out a chair and sitting down without waiting for permission. "That a problem?" The Valorian ambassador's diplomatic instincts screamed warnings. But he had no choice. The negotiations had been scheduled for months, with dozens of species watching. To postpone now would be seen as weakness. "Very well," Thelgzar said, recovering his composure. "Let us begin. The Federation has reviewed humanity's claim to Kepler 442b and found it lacking in legal merit. The planet falls within Federation buffer zones established by the Treaty of—" "We were there first," Adam interrupted, picking at something under his fingernail. Excuse me?" "We were there first," he repeated, looking up with those unsettling eyes. "We planted a flag. That's how it works, right? Finders keepers?" Thelzar's head tendrils twitched in agitation. "The legal frameworks that govern territorial claims are far more complex than such primitive." "Let me tell you about complex," Joyce interjected, leaning forward. "Complex is trying to extract wounded soldiers from a collapsing mine shaft on Proxima Station while the air's on fire. Complex is coordinating a 3-moon evacuation with equipment held together by prayers and duct tape. This?" She gestured at the ornate chamber. "This is just talking." "Diplomacy is not just talking, Lieutenant," Thelgzar said stiffly. "It is the art of finding mutually beneficial solutions through careful—" "How many people you killed?" Adam asked suddenly. The question hung in the air like a grenade. I am a diplomat. I do not—" "Thought so." Adam leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight. "See, Joyce and me, we've killed people, lots of them. Not because we wanted to, but because sometimes that's what needs doing. And you know what we learned? Dead people don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They don't find mutually beneficial solutions. They're just dead." "I fail to see how this is relevant." "It's relevant," Joyce said softly, "because we understand consequences in a way you don't. You talk about treaties and frameworks and legal merit. We talk about the 300 families living on Kepler 442b who moved there legally, under human law, and built something from nothing. The Federation does not recognize— Don't care, Adams said flatly. Here's what's going to happen. We're keeping Kepler 4x42b. You're going to adjust your buffer zone. In exchange, we'll grant you mining rights to the 3 outer moons and establish a joint research station in the asteroid belt. Thelgzar's tendrils straightened in indignation. That is unacceptable. The Federation cannot simply— Or, Joyce continued, her voice never rising above conversational, we don't do that. You try to enforce your claim militarily, and we remind you why humans went from sticks and stones to starships in less time than most species figure out agriculture. Are you threatening military action? Nope, Adam said cheerfully. We're terrible at diplomacy, remember? We're just telling you what's going to happen. See, Ambassador Williams, he's smooth. He would have dressed this up nice, made you feel good about it, found some face-saving way to frame the whole thing. But he's not here, and we're not him. Thelgzar looked between the two humans, his centuries of diplomatic experience suddenly feeling inadequate. These weren't negotiators who could be maneuvered or manipulated. They were blunt instruments pretending to sit at a table designed for scalpels. The Federation Council will never agree to these terms, he tried. Joyce smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then you get to explain to them why you let 2 grunt Marines outmaneuver the Federation's finest diplomatic mind. That'll look great on your record. The silence stretched. Thelzar's mind raced through options, scenarios, outcomes. The humans were right about one thing. Dead people didn't negotiate. And while the Federation had superior numbers, humanity had already proven disturbingly effective at warfare during the Kryn incident. More importantly, the precedent this would set— the mining rights, he said slowly. They would include full resource extraction privileges? Yep, Adam confirmed. And the research station would be genuinely joint, equal access to all discoveries? Sure, Joyce said with a shrug. Thelgzar's fingers moved to his data tablet, already composing the framework in his mind. It wasn't what he'd wanted, but it was workable. More than workable, actually. The mining rights alone would satisfy several influential Federation members. I will need to consult with— You got 2 hours, Adam said, standing up. Then we're grabbing lunch. Good noodle place couple levels down. You're buying, by the way. Diplomatic courtesy and all that. As the 2 Marines left, Thelgzar sat alone in the crystalline chamber, staring at his notes. Somewhere in the Federation diplomatic archives, this negotiation would be studied for centuries. The finest diplomatic mind in the galaxy, outmaneuvered by 2 soldiers who barely understood the concept of tact. He began typing his report to the Council. Already knowing what the historians would say, sometimes the worst diplomat is exactly the right person for the job. Outside, walking toward the lift, Joyce glanced at Adam. Think Williams really had food poisoning? Adam grinned, the scar on his face pulling tight. Nope, but Command knew what they were doing sending us instead. Damn right they did. They headed for the noodle place. 2 terrible diplomats who had just rewritten the rules of engagement, one blunt conversation at a time.